Good afternoon, everyone. Today, let's have a discussion on Ferdinand de Saussure. Here is a man who is known as the father of modern linguistics. He is also a semiotician, a Swiss linguist, and a philosopher. He is also the chief forerunner of structural linguistics. The major work of Ferdinand de Saussure is a course in general linguistics, which got published in the year 1916 and which was actually based on lecture notes taken by his own students in the University of Geneva between the years 1907 and 1911. Now let's have a look at the major contributions of Ferdinand de Saussure. Language as a system of signs or structure is one of his contributions. We'll have a detailed discussion on all these contributions in the coming slides. He also put forward the idea of linguistic sign as a combination of signifier and signified. His another contribution is the system of, or he distinguished the system of speech elements as lang and parole. He distinguished between the synchronic and diachronic approaches to the study of languages. Now, let's take the first one, which is language as a system of signs. So, when we say language as a system of signs, first we should know what a sign is or what are signs. Language is made up of signs. So, what is a sign? Sign is a physical marker that carries some kind of information. So, what kind of information it is? The information is direct, brief, and precise. So, Saussure says that sign is a center of language. Language is a system of signs or structure. We know that its constant elements can be understood only in relation to the other components and to the system as a whole. There is no external reality other than these relations. Let's take a poem as an example. A poem is a structure constituted by units such as sounds, phrases, pauses, punctuations, words and all. Every unit is connected to other units. So the poem is thus the result of all units put together. So to Saussure, language is a system of signs constructed by social convention. There is no intrinsic meaning to the word but attributed to it. Now, Nature of Linguistic Sign is one of the essays written by Saussure, where he says that some people regard language when reduced to its elements as just a naming process, a list of words, naming process in the sense a list of words, each corresponding to the thing that it names. According to Saussure, the linguistic sign unites not a thing and a name, but a concept and a sound image, which is very important. Everything is connected as a concept and a sound image. Linguistic sign has two parts according to Saussure, which are signifier and signified. Now, let's have a look at this. Signifier and signified. So, we get this sign system which is divided into two. One is signifier, another is signified. Signifier is the physical form. Let's say it can be letters or the sound which we produce, and with every sound we produce we associate a certain mental concept. So that is what we call as signified. This is another example where we can see this particular object which we call as apple, right? So the signifier is the sound we produce and the signified is the mental concept that we associate with that particular sound. Here is another example. Here we have three signs. The first one is the rose, so where the signifier is red rose with a green stem and which signifies a symbol of passion and love. Now the second one is a cross. So that is a signifier which actually signifies a symbol of religion. Specifically, it's a symbol of Christianity. And the third one is a heart shape, which is a signifier, and it signifies a symbol of love and affection. Now, here is another diagrammatic representation of signifier and signified. So sign is divided into two, signifier and signified. One is a sound image, another is the mental concept that we associate with that particular sound. Here is another diagrammatic representation of signifier and signified. Now, Saussure divides sign into signifier and signified, as we have already mentioned, and the relation between the sound image, which is the signifier, and the object represent, which is the signified, which is unstable and arbitrary. Saussure says that the relation between the signifier and the signified is arbitrary in nature. There is no one-to-one relation between the two, between signifier and the signified. Now, let's see this tree. The sound image tree signifies this particular image of a tree. But the word tree, when we utter the word tree does not signify the actual object, which is this. This is the actual object of tree, right? But the word tree does not signify the actual object. In that case, we know that the word for this object in all languages would have been the same. Tree is different in different languages. So the word tree does not represent the actual object in life. So there is no one-to-one relation between the signifier and the signified. So the word tree represents the concept or image in our mind. So we get an image when we get the sound called tree. We invent a word with sound images, with some sound images, which is later used to represent the concept in our mind. And there is no logical reason for choosing a certain combination of words to represent the concept. Relationship between sounds and the concept they signify is an arbitrary one, as we have already mentioned. Now, how do we establish this relationship between the word and the mental image? So relationship is actually established as a social fact by a society. It should be validated by a social agreement. Linguistic sign, as we said, it is arbitrary in nature. Many such signs make up the system of language. Signs are relational entities. They exist only in terms of relation to each other, and the relationship actually it makes up the whole system of language. And since arbitrary, the signs differ from one language to one another. Concepts are different in different societies and different cultures. So we know that, right? So every society constructs its own concepts of real world and links these concepts to certain signifiers and certain signifieds, which is arbitrarily chosen. The signifiers are then used to refer to these concepts, and signifieds are used to refer to the actual object. Once relationships are made, that is fixed. People are not free to choose any arbitrary signifiers they want to choose. It is something which is validated by the society. Now, let's move on to the next contribution of Saussure, which is langue and parole. Langue is what is shared by the community. Parole is the individual utterance. Langue denotes a system of internalized shared rules governing a national language's vocabulary, grammar, and sound system, which is the underlying speech system or structure of languages. Parole, on the other hand, designates actual oral and written communication by a member or members of a particular speech community. Let's take our own mother tongue as an example. When we take Malayalam, we have Malayalam as a langue, but we have different utterances or different varieties of Malayalam in different districts, in different regions. That can be taken as an example of parole. Another example that we can see is Saussure himself has given the example of chess, the game which exists as a set of rules and functions, that is a langue, with endless possibilities to be played out, which can be taken as parole. Langue, as we know, it is like a mathematical table. The tables are a system of rules and tools for use. The everyday calculation we do with mathematics is an instance of parole, where we employ the tables to get the calculation done. So, if lang is a system of rules and conventions that govern how we use words and meanings, parole is language in context. Now, let's move on to the next concept, which is synchronic and diachronic. Synchronic study means study of language as a system at any particular time in history, whereas in the case of diachronic study, it is a study of the origin and development of any language historically. For example, let's see this. Analyzing the word order in a sentence in Old English only would be a study in synchronous linguistics. If you looked at how word order changed in a sentence from Old English to Middle English and now to modern English, that would be a diachronic study, which is a historical study. So, let's wind up today's session with this. We will have our next session soon.